What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the fifth album and first Spanish album by rap musician Pitbull. Basically, this product is called Armando and it came out in the fall of 2010. So I'm basically going to review the four singles off this particular product. I would have to say, now these are Spanish language type ones. I don't speak Spanish wholesomely, so I'd have to say I'm just going to I'm going to review the singles as a result. I do feel like this album is pretty quality from what I've seen of the singles. I'd have to say definitely all four of the singles I recommend. So it's definitely going to get like a classic score. I know Pitbull is normally a pretty crazy party animal as far as that pitch kind of particularly happens with his 2009 album, the Revolution album. That was definitely pretty good with songs like Hotel Room Service and some of those type pitches. And he's had other hit projects. His album after this one in 2011, Planet Pit, was pretty damn good. That got him a #1 on the Billboard. So it's just some pretty good pitches. Pitbull was just pretty fiery throughout his run as far as the particular kind of went between like the mid 2000s to about the mid late 2010s as far as that pitch can happen. Now some of this is EDM type here, but definitely reminds me of the sort of stuff that Akon and Tayo Cruz and folks like that kind of did. LMFAO and some of those type folks in particular, I'd have to say. So it's a pretty good concept to get that. But this is a pretty feisty type production of a project here, I'd have to say, just within the concept of these singles. Wadagata Pitas Berry, Maldito Alcohol, Bon Bon, and Tu Cuerpo are all some real nice ones to kind of get here. A lot of these are just pretty ferocious and like the weekend type craze and pitches like that. It's a pretty feisty, ferocious type album to kind of get. Drinks in your system, dance crazes. All four of these are some pretty big dance club type hits. I think this is a pretty good Latin album in terms of the relative pitch behind it. It seemed like one that really blew up in like the early 2010s as far as a particular kind of one. It's just a good, nice one to kind of get here. Definitely wanted to cover this because I noticed that there weren't any reviews or really much publicity about this particular project. I mean, there's publicity about it in terms of the music videos and stuff, in terms of like critique about it. I think about apart from places where you have to read it and stuff like that online, I'd have to say is this kind of concept I want to get some critique about it. So yeah, basically there's four singles off this particular project, and I recommend all four. So I'll go ahead and say that this project is going to get a 10 out of 10, at least in terms of singles. And I don't know how many other songs I would recommend this because I think most of these songs are in Espanol, or at least for the most part. It might be Spanglish, something like that, but just I'd say for the most part, I just maybe one day in the future I could try to review some of these, but for the most part, I think this will probably be like the definitive review just in terms of that. But the singles, just in terms of the four singles off this project's going to get a 10 out of 10. So I'll just go ahead and say that. But basically, the first single is Wadagata Pete This Berry, which basically in English kind of translates to, it's like a slang type phrase that has to say in particular. It's just kind of the concept. It's just one of those phrase type ones to kind of get something like, make it rain, something like that, some of those type pitches. But it basically means bang badge, something like that, bang the pussy, some pitches like that. This would have to say. This song is definitely like a thumping kind of venue turn up, I would have to say in particular. This song is definitely like a spicy kind of dance club heat of a song, I'd have to say. And this is kind of some overlooked kind of Friday music nowadays that has, I suppose, pretty good concept. This is kind of forgotten about Pitbull song. Never fucked with this song back in the day, but I would have to say it's a pretty dope concept. Kind of get this in particular. Do you like the concept? The lyrics on this particular song is kind of Spanglish on here. Some of it's in Spanish, some of it's in English, I'd have to say. But I did like the line on this particular song. It wasn't from Pitbull, but it was a pretty good cat that the folk that particularly did this. He said, "Baby, you spaghetti" on this particular song, which spaghetti is kind of like a phrase as far as saying that you're being clumsy when it comes to courting someone in terms of that's the relative aspect that had to say courting women for guys and within that aspect it had to say, but can also be for women when they're clumsy. But it's just kind of the concept. It's a phrase that doesn't pop up too oftenly, I have to say, and it's definitely some social snap. Just some real good Friday night, just the pitch of Friday night, just 10 o'clock p.m. just no work in mind, just pitches like that, just standard kind of weekend craze pitches like that, just a real social snap of just really women are looking ferocious pitches like that, just looking snazzy, some of those type pitches, just real social snap, I'd say. So it's a good concept. I do appreciate that. Wada Gotta Pete Despair also has Lil Jon on here, some folks like that. It's just a pretty good thumping type one. Really the bass is pretty heavy on this particular one. It's pretty good bounce of a single, I'd have to say. I don't know how high this particular song charted, but I like the concept of it. It's just kind of one that's just an entry type one. I feel like Maldito Alcohol is a little bit more like a craze type one, and I feel like Bon Bon's kind of a relatively, I mean, it's just kind of the swirl of these particular songs. These are definitely going throughout the night, but this is like an entry type one. Probably not I wouldn't say Wada Gotta Pete This Berry would be like 738, but definitely probably like 839, some pitches like that as things start to get revved up a little bit more. Definitely appreciate the concept of that. Maldito Alcohol. Maldito Alcohol is the second single, which basically means damned alcohol in English. I'd have to say it's a pretty good concept for that. It's like a hypnotic kind of get tore up dance club noise of a song, I'd have to say. It's like a vintage Pitbull hit, I'd have to suppose, and it's a pretty blistering type song, I'd have to say in particular. Really appreciate the production on this one. This really just feels like a syrupy kind of hypnotic type one. Just really getting some drinks in your system, kind of feeling woozy pitches like that. I mean, not full blown tore up to the point where you're just kind of like in danger or something like that, but just kind of the concept of just really having some good times, just noticing the feeling pitches like that. The women are really looking nice, some of those type fairs as far as that would particularly kind of happen, and some good dance club type effects just to really be able to have. But I do like There's a particular couple lines on this song I enjoy, one of which is Yo no quiero agua, yo quiero bebida, which basically means I don't want water, I want a drink. I like the concept of folks actually saying that, just especially with like this healthy prone type stuff that's going on. This makes me question if Pitbull's been more healthy in nowadays times, if he's real water centric and gym centric and some of those type pitches. But I did like the concept of hearing this back in 2010. It's a pretty excellent concept that he didn't want like a cup of water or something like that. He wants to get like some tequila or some of those type pitches. That I'd say pretty dope concept. And then another dope line on this particular song is when Pitbull says, "Call the firemen because it's burning here." So it's pretty good concept. Just the ferocity of all the women in the particular venue and pitches like that. Just pretty, definitely folks know about those moments where every single person in that damn building is hot as fuck as far as the particular kind of goes. It's a pretty shrill concept just being able to say that. So it's definitely a pretty good concept. This is a great 1-2 punch with Wada Gotta Pete This Berry, but then I would actually say it's a good 1-2-3 punch because Bon Bon's a pretty nice one as well. This really carries off the ferocity as far as that goes. I'd say definitely Maldito Alcohol is probably one that you would listen to 10, 30, 11 at night. Now, all of these are kind of dance club type tunes. I realize that most dance clubs probably shut down about 2:33 in the morning. I'd have to say it was just kind of the concept as far as being able to say this is probably about where things really start getting interesting. But then Bon Bon's a pretty nice one. This is the third single. I want to say this is like a French word, but it basically means like candy or sexy woman in terms of Spanish slang as far as that particularly kind of happens. This is like a Wired kind of later on in the night type tune. I would definitely have to say it's definitely like a Wired kind of later on in the night type flash of a song. I'd have to say in particular it's like a continued dance craze. I would have to say after some of these other singles like Wada Gotta Pete This Berry and Maldito Alcohol, I'd have to suppose, and this is just some stellar turn up. So it's definitely a pretty good concept. I would have to say one of the lyrics I liked on this particular song was just the fact when Pitbull says, "I'm not Home Depot, but girl, give me some wood." I'd have to say it's a pretty good concept, kind of get that. Just a good line to kind of have that on there. I mean, the lyric translation of this particular song, Bon Bon, is not quite as emphasized. I'd say it's not quite as realized on this particular song. It's not oftenly that like Espanol type songs really translate full blown to English in terms of like what's lyrically there. I mean, unless they hit like number. I mean, there's some ones like Wada Gotta Pete This Berry had some of these type ones, but unless like the hits like really huge or something like that, the lyrics are not always like bar for bar quite as translated as well. I mean, that they're there, but it's just kind of there's like some give or take kind of within the atmosphere as far as that kind of happens. But there just were some lines. I mean, it's just a pretty saucy type rap type song. I'd have to say in particular, it's just kind of the concept of it. It's just kind of the situations to how that happens. But there are some good lines on the particular song. That was one of them I'd have to say. But yeah, this is basically like an even further tour of. This is definitely one after the initial kind of dance craze and just the initial or the further kind of things getting turned up type moments of Maldito Alcohol, especially after the entry type moments or later on moments of Wada Gotta Pete This Berry. I'd say this is definitely one where you're starting to be a little bit woozy pitches like that as far as that would particularly kind of happen. But it's definitely a good concept kind of get some of these. I definitely feel like on this song you particularly feel wired just with your buzz, just having a good time, some pitches like that, just really enjoying like the craze of the weekend or some of those type bears. Just some great summer energy overall. Pretty much any time of the year, I'd have to say. Just some real good concepts just for that weekend type craze. Just some excellent type context I'd have to say. And then basically Two Cuerpos, the fourth single, and this means Your Body, which is a pretty good concept just within that. It's another good highlighted hit. This is more like vintage of like pop rap type tunes. Is something and more like this is pretty similar to like I Don by Don Omar from 2009. I'd say it's just one of those typical kind of MySpace rap kind of pop rap type tunes that like folks like Akon and Don Omar, and this is the kind of pop rap that folks like Akon and Don Omar and Tayo Cruz are kind of doing around the late 2000s, early 2010s as far as that pitch kind of happens with it. But this is like a vintage kind of late 2000s EDM craze of a song. I'd say once again similar to Akon and Tayo Cruz. I would definitely feel like, and this is just a radio smash hit, and it's pretty jivey. So this is a standard dance club type one, a little bit more affable for the ladies, pitches like that, just a little bit more radio friendly, more kind of blue collar s. Maybe you just have work the next day, some of that type pitch, more Wednesday night music compared to like more Friday night, Saturday night type pitch, Thursday night type pitch, like the first three singles. I'd have to say this is definitely pretty dope concept. Kind of get this in particular as far as that would kind of happen. This one is probably the most, like I was saying, this is probably the most radio friendly one on here. The most kind of circa just kind of has the most commercial and vanilla type vibe. Just a standard type one that just kind of has some relatively just good dance energy, but not crazy. Probably like a 6.5, 7 out of 10 in terms like that. Probably like a 6.5, 7 out of 10 in terms of the craziness factor and the overall just ferocity of it. But I'd still say this is a pretty quality song. Definitely an affable type one and ready for just like commercial vibe. Just kind of the concept's a little bit tamer, so it's a good concept. But basically, the lyrics on this particular song is pretty simple, just like a standard kind of radio pop rap type single to kind of get here. Lyrics don't full blown jump off the page in terms of like the ferocity of like superb kind of hot lines, but I did like the chorus where the cat on the chorus basically says, silence that little mouth, let your body do the talking. I'd have to say this is a pretty good concept, kind of have that in particular. Nice chorus to kind of get that, has an affable ring to it, and just overall it works pretty damn well, I'd have to say. So that's a good concept. But basically, the score I'm going to give this album, once again, in terms of the single quality, I just would have to say the singles of this album is going to get a 10 out of 10. Just the affability behind it. Pitbull has like 8 other songs like these particular ones. I'd have to say this is pretty much like a classic album. I know Pitbull normally nails like his albums and singles as far as that particular pitch kind of happens with it. So it's a dope enough concept. This definitely feels like a pitch particular Pitbull album. I'd have to say definitely one of his best, and at least in terms of like the format of like the radio promotion, I'd have to say about this particular one. So it's a pretty excellent concept. We're going to get that here. The social score is going to get a 10 out of 10 also, because all of these are pretty fierce and ferocious. I'd say I think a lot of these charted pretty heavily on like the Latin charts and like the dance charts as far as that particular pitch kind of happens, and like the rhythmic ones. There's just some good ones, like a good vanilla pop rap EDM type tune and Tu Cuerpo, like some real crazy drink craze type songs, and just overall weekend energy and Maldito Alcohol. Nice good dance club thump and just overall festive crazed energy, and like Wada Gata Pitas Berry. And then Bon Bon's like a pretty nice one to really be wired, and just really as the night really gets tilted, if it's just like that, and just more tore up later, I'd say. So it's an excellent concept, going to get that in particular. So yeah, 10s across the board. Just what I'd say in terms of the future, like Pitbull, he's been putting out more projects. I'd have to say I know he has at least maybe one other Espanol type album to kind of get here. I'll have to get to some more of these as time goes along, and I'd say, but this definitely, from what I've seen of it, feels like a classic type project in the making type here, and I definitely would have to recommend this, at least in terms of like the promotion this project particularly kind of got.